So, I thought I'd try a slightly different video today. Rather than looking at a game, instead I'm going to be taking a look at a magazine. In this particular case, we're going to be taking a look at The Micro User, Volume 7, Number 2, which came out in April 1989 for the princely sum of £1.50. Now, the reason I've selected this particular magazine is because I don't know how many of these videos I'll end up making. I think it'll partly come down to how popular they prove to be. So I thought what I'd do is start with an edition of the magazine that I am particularly keen on, for a mixture of reasons. There are some very good articles in the magazine, but also because it's an edition of the Micro User that I have very fond memories of. My dad got me this edition. He probably got it for himself, if I'm honest, and then he handed it to me after he'd finished with it. But that doesn't take away from the fact that it's got a very strong sort of nostalgic feel for me. And so what I thought I'd do is we'll take a look through the magazine. I'll highlight some of the articles that are in the magazine, and who knows, if it proves to be popular, I might do some follow-ups and take a look a bit more in depth at some of the articles, maybe play around with the type-in listings that are contained in some of them, and explore some of the programs. And if that proves to be popular, I've got a lot of editions of the Micro User and one or two of the Acorn User as well. So who knows, maybe there'll be a few more of these, and it might become something of a series. But that's kind of up to you. I really look forward to hearing your feedback on this video. If you think it's a load of rubbish, fair enough, I can understand that. But if it is something that appeals, and if you've got an interest in old magazines and you've got some suggestions perhaps for other magazines that I should look at too, I am all ears. But for now, we're going to take a closer look at The Micro User from April 1989. So this is the front cover, and as you can see, it calls out some of the main features of the magazine. The animated sprites article is of course the one that is being promoted most heavily. You'll also notice in the top right corner that the Micro User by this stage, by 1989, starting to refer to itself not just as the top-selling guide for the BBC Micro, but also the Master, the Archimedes, and even the Z88, which of course was not actually an Acorn machine, but it ran BBC Basic. And of course a lot of the content for the Micro User, even up to 1989, was still heavily geared towards BBC Basic. You'll also notice down here in the bottom right, Barbarian is back. If you can see that there, if you just look closely at the corner. And in fact, on the back, we've got a lovely advert for Barbarian 2. Excellent game from Peter Scott. You can see some of the screenshots from it here. And of course, the slightly controversial artwork for the game. Don't know if you recognise this chap here. He was later to become famous as Wolf in Gladiators. But yes, there you are. That's obviously one of the newer games at the time. If we look along the sort of left-hand column, this is some of the other things it's calling out here. The Mega Drive, not to be confused with the Sega console of the same name, but this is an article promoting hard disk storage. Got some stuff about multitasking, we'll get to that in a minute. Stuff about the national curriculum as well. Of course, the BBC Micro famously was very much tied into the sort of government educational programs of the day. Some stuff about the Archimedes. Block Breaker, a massive type-in listing. More on that in a minute. Of course, an article specifically devoted to the Z88 here. And then some reviews here as well. So yes, a very fun-packed articles in this magazine. There you go, got a reference here to Play It Again Sam 7, one of the compilations from Superior Software, featuring Firetrack, Bone Cruncher, Snapper and Ghouls. I do like this advert here, Render Bender. That's probably not a product that you would see nowadays with a name like that. And here's the lovely contents page. It has to say that the magazine itself, in terms of its format, hasn't changed a lot over the years from when it first started in the very early 80s up to 1989. It still has the very similar kind of features of the contents page, featuring the cover story, of course, and you can even see a little screenshots down here of the Z88 as well, which was still fairly new, I think, at the time. There we go, News Beat. This was sort of news from the Acorn world back then. You can see Acorn's Unix flagship being launched there. Got some stuff about some podules there for the Archimedes. Stuff about the microlink as well. Some Doctor Who sci-fi user groups. Very early sort of primeval sort of internet back then. More stuff about Acorn hiring a new marketing manager there, Frank Burdett and Warwick Hurst. And here we are, some more news here for some golden success for some of Acorn's top dealers. More news as well. Professional plotters here, very exciting. The Beebback Stewart, television personality Stuart Hall, known nationally as the jovial host of It's a Knockout. There you go, a relationship there with the BBC B, Model B behind the scenes. Some more adverts here, featuring Archimedes software again. Very much the sort of Archimedes starting to take centre stage. Now this is really interesting, look at this. A double-page spread for the Atari 520 in the micro user. That's a bit cheeky, really. There you go, that was Atari trying to nick some of the Acorn market there. And here we are, the basics of movement. It's a rather clever title there, because of course it's BBC Basic, that's the programming language that's used for this particular article. And it's actually the first in a series of articles, and it kind of goes through the sort of elementary nature of how you animate things on screen, which is quite exciting. As I say, if there's interest, I might do a follow-up specifically on this article, and perhaps on the series in general, just to see how it builds up over time. This was quite a cunning ploy from the micro user back in the day. They get you interested in a particular sort of series with a front cover spread, and then once they sort of hooked you in, you feel compelled, obviously, to buy the next magazine in the series, so that you could find out what happens and how to sort of develop the initial programming techniques that they showed you. Get more from your printer. There you go. Let's see articles devoted to that sort of thing these days. There you are. Megaprint NLQ. Now here we go, this is the so-called Mega Drive, mass storage for the master. So Cumana has taken the industry by surprise by unveiling a 10 megabyte removable disc cartridge for the BBC Master. Quite impressive. Look at it there, the chunky beast. Very exciting. We've got the software scene here as well. There we go, more software for, I think mostly for the Archimedes again. Orbital, one of the sort of lesser known games, I would say. Infinity, not to be confused with Repton Infinity, of course. It is quite a nice one, a sort of a compendium of board games, or Arkendium. Arc, obviously, standing for Archimedes there. This was, I particularly like these articles. These were written to sort of give you some hints for some of the adventure games, even Elite being featured down here. L, of course, famous. And I believe, as I recall, that part of the reason why I got hold of this copy of the magazine was for this particular key bit of information down here referencing Palace of Magic. Specifically how to free the frog in Palace of Magic, which was something I was struggling with at the time, and I think that's partly what prompted my dad to get this particular copy of the magazine. It's certainly the thing I remember the most about it. It's funny how these things go. It doesn't really take up very much of the magazine, but yes, I can remember studying this and then trying it out. Can't remember exactly how successful I was, but there you go. Now this was good. Mike Cook often wrote a column like this where he would kind of help people with some of their technical challenges they were having with their Acorn machines. I love adverts like this one. Look at this. A public apology. We at MD Office Supplies would like to take this opportunity to apologise to all of its competitors. We shall, with immediate effect, supply computer disks and storage boxes, etc. at below wholesale prices. That's quite an advertising technique there. Don't see a lot of that these days. Oh yes, now this is Blockland, demolition in Blockland. So this is a massive type-in listing. It starts here. Look, this is the thing that always used to get me with the type-in listings, particularly in the micro user. You'd turn to this, if you were flicking through the magazine, you'd see this and think, wow, I can get a game like this from just a bit of typing in here. But lo and behold, look in the the bottom right corner, turn to page 120, which I will just quickly skip ahead to page 120 just to show you what you're in for if you really do decide that this is the game you want to type in. Some of you will know that you're in for a bit of a scare, because there it is, the full type-in listing. And just look at these data statements here. This is insane. Imagine typing that in, as I did back in the day. I mean, look at it. I didn't even understand what I was typing in back then. And to be perfectly honest with you, I'm still not 100% sure exactly what all of this is. I mean, it's obviously some form of, I don't know, compressed data maybe. Perhaps someone in the comments can give me a hint as to exactly what's going on here. But, I mean, imagine trying to debug that. Now, of course, by this stage, the micro user had launched something called Get It Right. This was a way of basically turning your lines of code into essentially a simplified hash, and then you could compare the hash of your code. So you would type all of this in and then process it through the Get It Right program, and it would output this much more simple output here, which is a lot easier to compare. So if you got an error at line, I don't know, 3130, which is one of these massive data statements, you could quickly compare it by looking in this comparison here to see whether it equals 6579E, and if it didn't, then you knew that there was a mistake. So yes, it was a way of trying to make the old data statements a little less fiendish, but still, it's quite the game. I'm trying to remember now. I definitely did try typing it in, but I can't recall if I ever succeeded in getting it to work. Of course, the complete BBC Micro Games Archive's probably got a copy of it up there, which you could just go and download now, but where's the fun in that, I suppose, if you do like your typing listings as I do. Yes, they often had a hardware article in the Micro User, even back then, even in 1989. They weren't generally of much appeal to me because I just wasn't into the electronics side of things, but who knows, maybe one day. And flicking further through, got a golfing game here, Hold Out, interesting. Playing tag speed sorts. Yes, now this is looking at how to extend sorting techniques to a database. That's quite interesting utility stuff there. You could kind of use these techniques and fold them into programs of your own, which is quite a nice feature. There's the old Z88 there, look at it. I had one of these. It was a hand-me-down, but yes, I can remember car journeys with my trusty Z88 playing around with programming on that very narrow screen. It's a great bit of kit though. Here we go. This is a feature about a software house, which is quite interesting. Tony Lee uncovers the origins of a successful software house. This was Computer Concepts. It had quite an impressive office building, as you can see there. I do like this little bit in blue. Not many programmers can step from their keyboards straight into a swimming pool or onto a tennis court for a relaxing break, but Computer Concepts software writers can. And they can also enjoy a game of snooker if they prefer. Pretty impressive stuff. Basic improvements. We've got a utility here as well. Baz Utils for Basic 5. Of course, that was specifically for the Archimedes. Some stuff about CFAX here as well. This was promoting software that was being transmitted via CFAX. This was a way of getting hold of programs back in the day. Focus on education here. Of course, always very close to the Beeb's heart. There you go. Software packages for schools. The old BT tower there. And a feature on the national curriculum in IT. Now, this would have been very, very interesting to my dad because, of course, he taught IT on BBC Micros, even up into 1989. So that he would have been very interested in this article. Quite a big spread here about some of the educational possibilities. Oh, and I remember these, Fun School. We had these in my primary school. I remember the teddy bear and the frog, Fun School too. It was sort of learning games, if you like. They were good fun, actually. I remember that they were pretty special. It was sort of combination of, you know, a genuine educational game. I think Granny's Garden, for example, is often referred to as an educational game, but I mean, it's great fun. I'm not quite sure what it is that it's teaching you, but these genuinely were educational software. You can see here, it's trying to teach you some stuff about France, and you can find the mole here. But yeah, they were good. I do remember enjoying that software in school. Got something called WIMP here, WIMP Manager. So again, another Archimedes. You can see there's a lot more Archimedes content by the time we get to 1989. Fun School 2 really being heavily promoted actually in this edition. Look at this scanner. Gosh, if you remember scanners like this, not the old flatbeds, you had to run this by hand across the sheet in order to scan it in. Quite impressive for its time. There we go, no risks with these discs. This is an ongoing series at the time with Steve Turnbull looking at Risk OS. Of course, Risk OS has gone on to have a life of its own on the Raspberry Pi and other platforms. The Perfect Pair, Mini Office 2, and the Dab Hand Guide to Mini Office, a book. Lovely stuff. Again, for the Archimedes and the BBC as well. Watford Electronics, goodness me. They were very, very much the powerhouse back in the day for all things hardware and accessories. Quite a long, look at this, 3 double-page spread, 4. Gosh, this is huge. It's like their entire catalogue. 5, like this one here, Le Modem. Does anyone remember phones like that? I certainly do. Gosh, I mean, they've really, it is pretty much their entire back catalogue here being printed in the micro user. Impressive stuff. 4-way mains distribution socket. Of course, those are still very much handy today. Program in parallel. Now, this is a really interesting utility. I was having a look at this one actually at the weekend. It's a way of basically being able to simulate multitasking on a BBC Micro. Sorry, not simulate multitasking. I should say simulate parallel processing by using multitasking. You essentially program the Beeb to jump from one program to another using this utility so that it can give the simulation at least of processing multiple programs at once. It's very clever stuff. Some more adverts here. Lovely printer. Look at this. Sales. Great. Software quickies. So some reviews of some of the Archimedes software here. Enter Einstein. Yes, it's quite an interesting little piece here. It talks about the sort of naming conventions at Acorn back in the day. So obviously the Acorn Electron, and obviously the BBC Micro was originally the Proton, and before that the Atom. But by this stage they obviously had the Archimedes, and then they went on to have Plato, Aristotle, and Socrates as well, which is great fun. I like the sort of theme there. Appeals to me. Another piece on the Z88. This is actually, I say it's on the Z88. Technically, the article was about learning to touch type, but the chap who's written the article thought that he would try these techniques of learning to touch type on a Z88. Now, I loved my Z88, but the keyboard, it was very much a Spectrum Sinclair software, Sinclair Research Machines kind of keyboard, sort of jelly touch kind of keyboard, and trying to touch type on something like that is never going to be particularly easy. He actually suggests in his conclusion that you might be better off trying these techniques on the Beeb itself with its mighty keyboard. There's our typing listing, of course, in full. These are the classifieds. I mean, amazing to think that back then you could have a classified in the micro user. I think you paid, here we go, it's down here at the bottom, 20p per word, with a minimum of 10 words. But they would guarantee to print your ad and in full. There was no word limit if you were prepared to pay your 20p per word. Some of the adverts are fairly wordy, it has to be said. There we go, that's continuing the typing listing for one of the utilities. Archimedes variables used in recursion. Yes, this is the letters page. So somebody writing in here to talk about some of the limitations of one of the recursion techniques that had been suggested in a previous article. I always like the letters page, more so today actually, because I'll read through it and it sometimes references a copy of the micro user I don't have, and then I think, oh, I'd quite like to read that article, so then I go and dig out the electronic version of it, and if I particularly like the sound of it, I sometimes go and see if I can get a physical copy from good old eBay. Now this is amazing. This person wrote in to say, look, if you're printing on a trusty old dot matrix printer ribbon and you're getting graphics coming out like this, what they suggest is instead get a piece of carbon copy paper, which you really don't see very much nowadays, but put the carbon copy paper between 2 plain sheets of paper and feed that through the printer, and the head of the printer will basically push the carbon paper in the right places, and you get a lovely printout. So quite a clever little hack there, as we would probably call it today. Arcade Game Creator. Yeah, I was looking at this advert only the other day, thinking, I don't know whether you can still get hold of this. So I had a quick look on eBay and couldn't find any adverts for people selling it. I don't know if it's available somewhere on the internet to download, but yeah, it was produced by the micro user. It was a set of utilities that you could use to program arcade games on your Beeb, or indeed your Electron, as it says. Has a sprite editor and level editor and all sorts. So yeah, quite exciting stuff. Some more mail order suggestions here. You've got mail order subscriptions. I think these are for software, I think, and magazines, and the monthly tape as well from the micro user. A few more adverts at the back here. Reach for the sky. There you are. Font styles, a variety of fonts for your printing. Lovely stuff. And then I think we've got to the end of the magazine here. So that concludes our run through. We'll just have another look at the old Barbarian 2 there. But yes, that concludes the run through of this excellent edition of the Micro User from April 1989. Hope you enjoyed running through that with me. It's a great magazine in general, the Micro User. And as I say, this particular issue, I've enjoyed many of the articles in it. So, as I said at the start, let me know. Please do give me some feedback on this video. If you thought it was really boring and you don't really want to watch me flicking through a magazine, I'm more than happy to hear that feedback as well, and I maybe won't make any more like this one. But if it was something you found interesting, or if there were any of these articles perhaps that caught your eye and you thought, oh, wouldn't mind hearing a bit more about that, please let me know that too, and I might just do a follow-up on one or two of the articles, perhaps the blockland type-in game. I might try to see if I can get that typed in and working. Anyway, as I say, whether you enjoyed it or whether you thought it was a bit of a snooze fest, if you've made it this far into the video, congratulations. And anyway, we'll see what the feedback is, and you never know, we might be looking at another edition of the Micro User in the near future. Hope you've enjoyed the video one way or the other, and until the next time, goodbye.